Thank you, and thank you to the Cyber Institute and Mike Quinn and friends and family for setting all this stuff up today. My goal will be to kind of go through a lot of these slides. There's a lot of material or comments in these slides, so I'm glad to share out PDF after, and I want to try and leave some time for Chris, for the other speakers, for some of the attendees to ask questions. So I'm gonna go through these with leaving time on the field for that in mind. And I want to also start off with, I absolutely mirror what Chris was saying about looking at this from an enterprise risk management perspective. You're going to see that theme consistent between he and I, looking at this from a privacy, security, business operations perspective, and have nothing but support for the themes that have been said by the speakers so far. So one of the things when people, my bio becomes a mouthful, and I apologize very much to my friends at the Cyber Institute. The graphical version is a little bit more fun. Naval Academy graduate, and I founded the Navy's Cyber Counterespionage program back in 1993. So it was before the web for you kids on the call. The web didn't exist at that point. So we were using wiretap laws from the 1930s. And doing all sorts of fun things. And I've had a great career working with some of the world's greatest teams in some of the world's greatest organizations, including being Microsoft's first chief of cybercrime intelligence, and as noted, running the entire US watchlisting system, all of its identities, the no-fly list or the selectee list, as you may know it. And now I'm at Stroz Friedberg's unit within AON. And AON is a 60,000 person insurance company across the globe. And Stroz Friedberg was basically the unit Facebook hired for Cambridge Analytica investigations, or Mr. Zuckerberg used to diagnose his college roommate's document a fake. We've been at almost every breach you've seen. We've just usually been there quietly as a cyber smoke jumper. And I'll talk a little bit about that kind of thing, but we're here to talk today about ransomware, and as Chris led off and the other speakers are focused on, what the attendees can do about these things. So one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and it's the reason I left from a startup with Richard Clark at the White House and Mudge Zatko, or Mudge from Cult of the Dead Cow, again, for those of you in the community a little bit longer, the insurance industry actually creates a behavioral loop that you all have seen in your lives many, many times before, and now it's showing up in cyber. This goes all the way back in history to steam engines that were used to heat and power cities, and they would overpressurize and blow up. This company, an insurance company called Hartford Steam Boiler, made a piece of infrastructure, a steam relief valve. And if you didn't install that piece of infrastructure, you were uninsurable. And that's how they became one of the world's largest insurance companies. Fast forward to the middle of the century, car companies didn't invent airbags and seatbelts and crumple zones. Insurance companies and claims and trying to drive less injuries, less deaths did. Welcome to the world of cyber engines everybody's driving around that are blowing up, running into stuff and causing the very PII leaks and damages that Chris and others have been talking about. I won't go into detail on these numeric slides. I only have one, I believe. We all know the horrific and ever increasing amount of lost wages, lost time, lost data, interruptions in services. And again, as I'll talk throughout my presentation, and I look forward to the discussion afterwards, this is not just about ones and zeros and getting your credit monitoring. This is about literally the ability to get hospital care, the ability for the lights to come on, to get gasoline, to go about your daily life as a free citizen of every nation. And I've supported all of them in various ways. So looking forward to the international parts of this discussion as well. So Mike and I, Mr. Quinn and I used to work together in many different ways at Microsoft and then, in the government agencies before that. So he asked when I was coming on this, if I could call some of my friends in Washington, DC and get an overview of what they thought the threat was. So I took some time, made some calls before the presentation today, and here's the replies I got. So the State Department says no friends, only emerging allies. CIA won't tell me because it'll endanger the source. NSA says I'm not cleared anymore. DHS says they're in charge no matter who. The US Marines, Mike, says mess with the best, die like the rest. And my personal favorite, the FBI thinks it's the CIA. So there's a little bit of difference of opinion of who is the threat, but who's not the threat? A kid in a hoodie. That is not a threat to the running of our government. That is not a threat to a Fortune 50 company. Anybody can walk up to your street and punch you in the nose. A lucky break happens. But truly, what we're up against and what we need to talk to our executives about day in and day out is a $1 trillion ecosystem of evil. This is organized crime on a pandemic and global scale, and only getting better, smarter, and faster in all of the areas around the world where it comes from. We are seeing business email compromises and invoice scams continue to grow in severity and frequency. We're, of course, seeing ransomware, which I'll talk about in detail today. But this is about that intellectual property theft, the next vaccines formula, the formula for soft drinks, the chip manufacturers, and the newest innovation in processing power or missile technology. That is multi-$100 million of research that you can jump ahead of by stealing intellectual property. This is also about the more and more information that's collected, as Chris and others said, we need to start minimizing that and being realistic about what an enterprise should retain and why and where, and how it can be obfuscated from the individual's identity. Also, the other thing before I leave this slide and get into ransomware trends is there is no company too small because there are small criminals. The criminals have a tiered set of criminal groups that tier across to the Fortune 50, the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, SMBs, 3-person companies, and extorting individuals on your laptop. So there is no too small to be targeted. Nobody cares about our vertical. There are criminals hitting every vertical because people in that vertical, mining, forestry, manufacturing, think nobody cares. So they go, to quote an old terrorist group, why hunt lions when there are so many sheep about? They will find a group of companies in a vertical and try and not only hit one, but then use the trust of that company to get to its partners, suppliers, vendors, and counterparts. Ransomware. We are seeing this horrifically worse and worse. The ransoms, the high water marks, $70 million ransom for a Fortune 50 company that was hit pretty hard. I often see $5 to $10 million ransoms in the cases I work every single week. We've seen entertainment law firm, 42 million. The ransom doubled from 21 to 42 when they didn't pay in a certain period of time. Also, it's not just about encryption, and if you have your backups, you can get out of it. It is now a double-pronged extortion with exfiltration of the data and then the encryption of what's left, including flattening the backups. And if you are able to recover from your backups, they will extort you for doxing or releasing your critical information to the public. So they have realized that some people can either reverse engineer the keys or do other types of things. This new tactic also now includes, in the cases I'm seeing, direct harassment of the executives if they don't pay, on social media, on their cell phones, things like that, to drive that level of angst and urgency in that incident response. And the reason I call myself and my team cyber smoke jumpers is often we get that phone call, most often on a Friday night or a Sunday morning of a 3-day weekend, and literally or figuratively put parachutes on backs and jump into the mix, either remotely or by helping a client on site when needed. And we're seeing these tactics again and again. They're getting much more bold. They're reducing the timelines. And also there's some impacts on the insurance industry, which I'll talk about as well. For those of you that don't go on the dark web, please continue not to go on the dark web. But hey, here's a quick snapshot of the ecosystem of evil is a click away. You can be the head of a ransomware operation for $50 a month, including all of the help desk and support and Bitcoin processing. They take 20 to 25% off the top. You could be a criminal czar of a ransomware operation within a couple of clicks if you're on the dark web. You can also buy DDoS attacks. You can buy drugs, guns, humans, whatever. The evil is abounding. And this is not just a discussion of cyber. This is a discussion of physical risks, of other things that we're going to talk about. And it's not new. In talking to some of the members of the community, they said, hey, a lot of people seem to think this is new. One of my favorite cases was in Australia. A disgruntled employee at a sewage management plant kept hacking in and then dumped 800,000 liters of raw sewage into a local municipality and had hacked in 50 times, almost 46 or something to that effect, and was not detected. Again, a SIM: protect, detect, restore, respond, recover. Nothing has changed in the 30 years I've been doing this in terms of process and in terms of focus areas, just the technologies we use. Similarly, for my friend in Greece, and I've been over there a couple of times, look forward to visiting again, I hope. Over in Turkey, in that region, the attack on the Baku-Tbilisi-Shehan pipeline, the BTC pipeline, a physical attack which was facilitated by hacking in and turning off some of the sensors for super pressurization, which led to the explosion. Also, it's believed the attackers hacked in and destroyed video footage around that part of the pipeline to cover the tracks of their attack. A physical, cyber, and otherwise multi-pronged endeavor that caused hundreds of millions of dollars and horrific impacts on, heating oil and other. Banking Trojans and SWIFT attacks, hundreds of millions of dollars, including $101 million from a Bangladeshi bank. That picture's 200 million. So I'm sorry if you have to imagine cutting it in half. I know that diminishes the impact of it. But if you ran a $101 million operation for your organization and asked your boss, could you do it again next week? I'm pretty sure they're going to say yes. So this is going to continue even on the most secure organizations. It's also really easy for other groups to steal $5 million by ransoming a small company, small or medium-sized company, $100 million to $1 billion. What we're seeing in trends: intellectual property attacks, attacks around before, during, or after mergers and acquisitions. I've worked a lot of mega breaches where the merged entity or the acquired entity was somehow involved in a causal means in the attack, whether it was during systems integration or the adversaries were resident in it when bought. The big area for focus. We're also seeing a huge increase in attack on retirement accounts and retirement funds, either at the organizational level or at the individual level, because they can steal that money pretty effectively. Also, as I've said, targeting of executives and overall the liability of the corporation. This is not just about cyber. This is about enterprise risk management all up and insurance all up. The tapestry of privacy, crime, directors and officers, errors and omissions, those kind of things that are in risk management are the same thing in the cyber industry. So please talk to your management about making sure cyber is not trying to lead the entire argument, that we are integrating into the enterprise risk management fabric and crosswalking those standards. So what I want to do is share out for the insurance industry, here's the 9 root causes of a ransomware either sparking or spreading. Multi-factor authentication. If you don't have it, get it now. You won't get insurance if you don't, or pretty much. Your renewal will be horrible. It's the equivalent of not having a smoke detector or a seatbelt and trying to get your car or house insurance. It's just, these list of 9 are the smoke detectors, sprinkler systems, and fire doors of their day. And these are the areas and questions you will see again and again by regulators, by insurers, by your board, and in all of the standards. Now, these are the top 9, doesn't mean they're the only 9. For the tech geeks in the group, here's how those 9 splay out in your kill chain of recon, weaponization, lateral movement, command and control, and then actions on objectives. For those of you on the executive side, consider this like a ship design, watertight compartments. These controls stop a spark or flood or fire doors from spreading. The renewal timelines for insurance are now much more involved. For those of you doing that, it used to be 90 days. You could turn it around in 2019, 2020. Now start planning out 3 quarters. because you're going to have to do assessments, mitigation, things like that. Quickly getting to how you can put your firm in the best position. First and foremost, contextualize that this is a discussion about business resilience, directors and officers, overall enterprise risk management. This is about our product liability for those supply chain attacks where one company's product was used to compromise 40, 50, or 60 others. I won't name names. We're all in this community. We know what the supply chain attacks look like, or what some of those attacks on one company's technology allowed them access to others. But for the grace of God, goes almost any company on the face of the planet when the adversary is dedicated enough and has the right resources. What should you be doing? The OODA Loop, for those of you who are military types: observe, orient, decide, act, wash, rinse, repeat. The cyber loop is something we call it with an R, is the total cost of risks, assessing, improving, transferring when possible, and then lessons learned and back around again. Again, I'll share out these so it's not really needed to take notes or figure out the terminology. But what we do is actually do that kind of evaluation as part of our processes, either around insurance or around consulting, where we look at those domains, all of the areas around the NIST domains, plus the things the insurers are looking for, and give our clients the scores of those, allowing them to focus the next best project, the next best dollar. But in looking at what you can do today as takeaways, even if you never call me, even if you never call anybody, take ideas from Chris's briefing about unifying your privacy and data retention programs and looking at your data management, and then bringing that back to cyber. Here's the final big challenge for all of us. Securing the perimeter, no longer a thing. Now it's all about identity. Guess what the next trend is? You need to understand the business process as well as or better than the business, because most of them don't. The other thing I'll tell you is every SIN of your organization is in your shared drive. There is a PDF with everybody's driver's license photocopied. I don't know why it's there. It was there from the start of the company. It's going to be there when the hackers find it. We find these things all the time. There are these huge spreadsheets with everybody's salary. Knowledge management and minimization of undesired retained data. Then do these things. Do tabletop exercises. Educate your employees, but they're going to be tired and they're going to click on something. Better have better endpoints. And it goes back to that list of 9, which I'll share out in a PDF, or again, reach out to me on social media or through the Cyber Institute. The final thing I'll say is, yeah, we do all these things. I'm most often called as a cyber smoke jumper in the middle of the nights, which is that right column, solve, when something usually goes wrong. But to align with Chris and others, it's about those 2 left columns. And this is the same protect, detect, restore, respond waterfront of topics and items that we should be looking at. We do all these things. I oversee 100 projects a year on all these kind of things, or more actually, but directly a lot of times about 100. And then we do the pen testing, other things. Even, again, here's a good cheat sheet. Somebody in your organization should be talking about all these topics, even if you're going to try and do them internally, but gear up, because this is what an enterprise risk management, at least starting list, looks like. So I'm going to end there and hand the mic back to my friends at the Cyber Institute to direct either saving time for other speakers or questions and answers. And thank you for your time.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah, you do have a bit more time. But still, it's good to have you. We'll have some questions ready for you. A bit more on the same line that we asked Jeff at the beginning of the presentation. What do you think about the government, or how much or how should the government get involved in particularly all these ransomware attacks that we are having right now, and especially when it comes to, it's not just about one industry, it comes to all. So it's such a global issue in terms of industries, and of course in terms of geographically as well, because it has no boundaries in that way either. But what would you what are your thoughts on that? What do you think about, getting involved, the private sector, the investments, government? What are your thoughts on that?
So, a huge fan of public-private partnerships and have been for many decades. In fact, way back in the mid 90s, there was the world's largest identity theft at the time when they digitized the congressional record, and it had the social security numbers of everybody promoted to flag rank was in the congressional record when you got promoted. That wasn't a problem until they digitized it. Then somebody went and committed identity theft. We reached out to all the credit bureaus and Navy Federal and Pentagon Federal banks and worked with them to alert their personnel on identity theft, which wasn't even called that at the time. Similarly, fast forward to when I was at Microsoft, their first chief of cybercrime intelligence for the corporation, working with Mike and others.
Yeah.
Senator Lindsey Graham visited, and this was in 2013. And I said, sir, we need to use a whole of government solution for this. And he goes, well, what do you mean by that phrase? He knows what it means, but he was asking my interpretation. We need to use diplomacy to stop the safe havens of these organizations. We need to work together between government and private sector, but I want to set a realistic expectation. You will be extorted. You will be hit. No matter what our government does, it's not going to stop that.
Yeah.
What they might be able to do is declare a clear and present danger and bring ultimately some whole of government things to bear. But we will still be in the crosshairs of these people because they can operate with impunity. And there are so many levels of them. Even if the government targets the largest organized crime groups, the bottom feeders are still going to hit the mid-market anyway and probably be below the give a damn of an international investigation or operation. So I think a lot of it also comes to a final bit on this is collective defense. The CIOs, CFOs, CEOs of the mining companies, I've worked with a bunch of them, forestry, worked with a bunch of them, the manufacturers of commercial electronics, the manufacturers of chemicals, should start talking amongst their groups about shared best practices and sharing among companies that compete in other areas to protect their entire market in that one. So I think besides public-private partnerships, private-private partnerships, either using the ISACs or others, should really be pulled forward, especially birds of a feather gathering, whether they're formal or not.
Great. And in education, well, at the Cyber Institute is one of our main goals is absolutely aimed at, and just working together, as you said, as a collective to stop these attacks. Well, not stop these attacks, but at least be ready. Is a bit on what everyone's been talking about. And on that note, what do you think? Well, this is actually one of the other questions that we have for our presenters. Is it right to pay? Is it good to pay for when you see the sort of the larger or the bigger picture? What do you think?
So I'll just ask the question: do you want your kid back? Like it's not a choice. Nobody. The reason it's called extortion is because it's not an optionality. The option is not, and this is a wonderful part of the discussion. Great question. Thank you for queuing it up. But I think the context of the question is wrong. You're being extorted. If you had a choice not to pay by better backups and not worrying that your information is going to be published, you're going to take that choice. And in fact, many of the clients I work with, if at all possible, they don't. And they put up with and they prepare for in advance and have the teams there in advance. They prepare for the eventualities of both the encryption and backups and the publication issues and what they're going to do about it. Never pick your Super Bowl team on game day. Also, never pick your incident response team. You need to know who these people are. You need to have team captains meetings long before everything, have all the paperwork in place. But back to the pay, don't pay. Making payment illegal, it already is extortion. Like, okay, great. It's illegal to pay. Now it's illegal for me to pay a ransom to get my kids back. It was already illegal. I still have no other option. So now if you criminalize the victim, it does nothing but still add to it So there's nuances there that I think are somewhat lost in the discussion. Is these companies, the option for them is pay or cease to exist. That's the option for many of them. That's why it's called extortion. Or even, and on the decryption side, on the publication side, no matter what you do, they're going to sell your data again, in my personal opinion. And I've seen it a bunch of times, but everybody's entitled to their own legal opinion in that regard. You might be paying for a delay. They might not even honor that. And the other one thing while we're on this topic, I just want, and I'm on my soapbox, let me step up on that and yell a bit. The ransom people aren't going to target hospitals. Horse shit, yes, they did. And they continued completely. And then everybody's like, oh, they're targeting hospitals again. Oh, we're so disappointed. They're criminals, for Christ. Like, stop it, thinking this is Robin Hood. Stop thinking anything. These people are evil. They will hurt your families. They will hurt your children. They will hurt your hospital. They will turn off your power and they will steal your money. Once we get through all of that and we get away from this hacker in a hoodie mentality, I think we're going to be good to go on looking at what whole of government solutions we can do. And in the meantime, if y'all need help, give me a yell. And Scott coming into the room, and I'm so honored to be on the same stage.